Hello and welcome back to Winners and Losers, where we break down the biggest results and talking points from the weekend just past. We're actually not going to talk about the FA Cup, as well done. Well, congratulations to Man City and Man United for getting over the line. You excited about that game, McCubs?
Yeah, I mean, massively excited, of course. Manchester derby in the final. A game that could potentially be a decider for a potential treble for Man City, and
In many
ways, like who better to try and thwart that than United. But yeah, I mean, both those games were not classics, let's face it. The Brighton United game in particular, a tactical battle, but one that ultimately ended 0-0. And yeah, United basically needed Solly March to miss that penalty because De Gea cannot save penalties. And interestingly, United have only won 2 of the last 9 penalty shootouts they've been in. The other one was against Rochdale. Guess who was in goal for that?
Tom Heaton.
No, Rob Sanchez.
So
both penalty shootouts that United have won in recent memory, Robert Sanchez was somehow in goal for both of them. So very strange. Hopefully he'll be present for the next one.
I thought you meant who was playing for Man United. That makes sense.
So no, Robert Sanchez was playing for Rochdale, which I cannot remember.
No,
but
neither.
Nevertheless, let's get into today's talking point, which is what Arsenal.
Arsenal versus Man City. We actually thought it would be worthy doing a bit of a preview, a look ahead to the big game this week, because following Arsenal's 3-3 draw with Southampton on Friday night, their trip to Man City on Wednesday has become an even bigger title decider. And despite Odegaard and Saka scoring in a late fight back, the Gunners were unable to complete an unlikely comeback despite creating multiple chances in stoppage time. This result leaves Arsenal 5 points clear of Man City, having played 2 games more, which is crucial. So if they lose at the Etihad and City win their 2 games in hand, they will drop 4 points behind them. So it feels very much do or die. They have to win there. City go into this very much as favourites. They've won 8 of their last 9 league games, dropping just 2 points in that run. They've been averaging 3.4 goals per game in all competitions since March. A run that has included a 7-0 demolition of Leipzig, a 4-1 win over Liverpool, and a 3-0 win over Bayern. They then got the job done in that second leg as well at the Allianz Arena. Arsenal, meanwhile, are winless in their last 3, conceding 7 across those fixtures. But McCubs, there is some big news at the back.
Yes.
Arteta's got some issues.
Yes, I mean, it's the news that Arsenal fans were fearing, but were probably expecting in some ways. William Saliba has, of course, been out since mid-March with that back injury that he sustained against Sporting CP, the same game in which Tomiyasu's season was ended.
Game.
It really, it was a very ominous game for the rest of Arsenal's season. And last week, Mikel Arteta said that Saliba is not progressing as he would have hoped. Quote, he said he's not there yet to throw him on the pitch at the level that the sessions demand to compete in this league. Worrying times for that back line, which has been exposed on multiple occasions. Like you were saying, 7 goals conceded in the last 3 games. Of course, they've avoided defeat in those games, but there's only so much that Arsenal attack can do when they're under pressure, when Walcott's getting in behind Gabriel, when Holding's getting beaten at the near post by Armel Bella-Kotchap.
That Walcott goal was a lovely goal.
It was a great goal, and actually, you know what? Putting out there, Theo Walcott has gone under the radar how good a second half of the season he's had in a Southampton side that are struggling. Every time I've seen Southampton play recently, Walcott's looked really, really good.
I like the look of Carlos Alcaraz as well, actually.
He does, 20 years old is he? Real talent. But back to Saliba. Sami Mokbel in the Mail today wrote that apparently the Frenchman has serious structural damage in his lower back. He's reportedly returned to training in recent days, but hopes of him making the City game, unsurprisingly, have faded given the lack of progress in this sense. Apparently he's happy to play through the pain, as many players would be in a title charge, and it really comes down to a decision by the club doctors and the coaching staff, doesn't it? Do you rush him back and risk him going off after 30 minutes against City and potentially being out for the entire rest of the season when there's still 6 games left of the campaign, or do you wait him out for another game and then bring him back on the weekend, and hopefully you will have salvaged something at City? But of course, it's not an ideal It's not an ideal situation going into this Man City game. I think if Arsenal had kept a couple of clean sheets in the last few games, and they, if they hadn't conceded so many goals, then it wouldn't be that big a talking point. But it is a talking point because the Etihad on Wednesday, I know Arteta's said that every game's a cup final, but this really is a cup final. I think Arteta has to treat this like it's a cup final. I think in terms of the way that he goes into it tactically, in terms of what he's prepared to do at different points in the game, it really is a cup final. Arsenal basically have to go there and win. A draw almost isn't good enough. A loss basically hands City the title. What would you do, Dukes? I mean, there are options there, but we were speaking with George in the office before. He was saying that the Tomiyasu injury in many ways is even worse because that he has that versatility, he has that ability to play in a back three as well. His injury has meant that Ben White has had to play at right back, and so I mean, obviously do you trust Holding to play in that back four? Do you go to a back three? What do you do?
It's really difficult, isn't it? I think crucial to this is not just that Ben White, is done very well defensively at right back, but he's actually been a massive threat going forward as well. And I think him and Saka's relationship has probably overtaken Trent and Salah as the most dominant right-sided relationship in the league this season, in my opinion. I think probably only Kieran Trippier could argue is had a better season than Ben White in terms of right backs in the league. But the Rob Holding question is a question that needs to be asked. I mean, he started the last 5 games. Arsenal have conceded 9 goals in those games. He's not necessarily always the guy that makes the error, but I think we were talking about it with George. If you don't know who George is, he's our director, producer, biggest gooner in the office, probably in an office full of them. And he was saying that, his lack of pace means they can't push up as high, and he's not as composed on the ball as Saliba. I mean, few centre-backs are. And he's kept 7 clean sheets this year, or have been involved in teams that have kept 7 clean sheets in 22 appearances this season for Arsenal, 4 of which came in the Europa League, and only 2 have been in the Premier League, and they were against Leeds and Chelsea, and they were back in November, the most recent one on the 6th of November. And he does have some strengths when he plays. He's very good in the air, very solid. I mean, he ranks in the top 5% of centre-backs for aerial duels won. But he's a fairly relaxed defender. He's not particularly front-footed. He ranks in the bottom 8% for tackles and interceptions. Not necessarily a problem in and of itself. Like Virgil van Dijk doesn't make a lot of, doesn't make huge amounts of tackles and interceptions, but it's his reading of the game. But I think Holding, his weakness is on the ball. I mean, even against, was it West Ham, where he gave the ball to Partey under a little bit too much pressure and Declan Rice robs the ball. There was a handball in the build-up to that. It was just a classic example of the slight deficiencies in his game causing other issues around the team and them not being able to press as high as a unit and really control oppositions as they have done so effectively in their opponent's half as well this season. He did start against Man City in the FA Cup this year. George was telling us about the game and, Holding started pretty well, then got booked on the 42nd minute, and got hooked at half-time. The other option, McCubs, is a change to a 3 at the back.
Yeah.
Now, this could be quite interesting because Kieran Tierney does have a lot of experience playing as an inside and outside left wing-back or left-sided centre-back playing for Scotland.
Yeah.
You could play Gabriel as the central cog of that. Ben White as the right-sided centre-back, which would probably suit his game really, really well, I imagine. But then they don't have a natural wing-back.
No.
It would probably have to be Trossard.
Yeah.
And then it causes issues in the front line.
It does.
Unless you're dropping Xhaka and playing Odegaard in midfield, you probably have to drop one of Jesus, Martinelli, Saka, or Odegaard from that front line.
Yeah.
I mean, do you think that is too much damage caused to the front area of your pitch to compensate for the potential Holding issue?
Potentially, but then I guess you have Zinchenko playing, Zinchenko in that wing-back role. He will be able to, stay a little bit higher up the pitch, given that Tierney is incredibly mobile. Obviously, you're dealing with Man City here, so, everyone's got to muck in. I think the concern is right wing-back. There's no one really naturally fit for that. Trossard is obviously an incredibly versatile player, and he's, that versatility has been crucial really to what's been great about Arsenal in the second half of this season. And obviously played almost everywhere at Brighton, but I was looking it up before. It was really as a left wing back where he was utilised by Graham Potter at the Amex. Almost no minutes actually played as a right wing back.
Interesting.
But I mean, there's nothing to say that he can't fill in there. It's just that I guess it would be a slight risk. But I think actually when you look at, I don't think sacrificing Xhaka is necessarily the worst thing, although he is the kind of character that you want on the pitch in this kind of game. He is obviously one of the big leadership figures at Arsenal. He was ill on the weekend as well. He couldn't play against Southampton. But in terms of defensive work rate, Ødegaard, can play in that too. He's one of the biggest pressers in the side. He, tracks back an awful lot. But I guess what you miss is that, he doesn't have quite as much freedom to kind of float in and around the box. And you're also putting a fair amount of pressure on Partey there too. But I think that would be, if Arteta was to switch it up, I think that would probably be the best bet, because I don't think you want to sacrifice that forward line too much. I think you want to be able to have Saka and Martinelli pulling out wide. You want to have Jesus picking up the ball from Ødegaard, and I guess maybe that's the compensation you make. You have Ødegaard doing a bit more defensive work in the midfield, and you have Jesus maybe doing a little bit more of Ødegaard's job in and around the box, making space for Saka and Martinelli to run in. But it's a bit of a mad one. Personally, I kind of feel like that's the kind of thing that Arteta might try at some point in the game, even if he doesn't start that way. I can see Arsenal going through a number of different working through a number of different kind of solutions to what City are throwing at them and trying to unlock that City defence. What do you reckon, Dukes?
I'm quite tempted to stick with the current formation. I think trialling a new formation that they haven't really used, at least from the start of games or for any great period, would feel like a massive risk when they need to cause Man City damage. This isn't about surviving. This isn't about covering up Holding's issues. This is about causing Man City their own problems. And I do feel like whilst John Stones is an excellent one-on-one defender, and Martinelli versus Stones feels like it could be quite an even battle, whoever plays on the left side of Man City's defence is likely to be Aymeric Laporte, because Nathan Ake is out until mid-May. He hasn't played a lot of football there. Hasn't played a lot of football this season, really. And Bukayo Saka versus Laporte feels like a battle that has to go Arsenal's way for them to get over the line. And I just feel like Saka, with his ability to go on the outside, to go on the inside, and link up with Ødegaard, it's one of the key components of this Arsenal side, probably alongside that relationship between Saka and White. I really want that to cause Man City some issues. It's just frustrating that I'd really like to see at this stage of the season both teams really at full strength. So they go in as huge favourites. As we said, they are 16 games unbeaten. They've won 11 of their last 12 games. Their only, drop points or draw in that period, was against Bayern. Of course, that wasn't for points, but you know what I mean. And they've scored 40 goals in those 12 games as well. So it's a frightening Man City side. There's no shame to lose out on them to the title or in this game, but you want Arsenal to give it their all, and that Saliba injury does feel like it could be massive. Score prediction,
Cubs.
God. Put you on the spot.
Yeah.
You love a 2-2 in big match prediction.
I do. I will. I'll go two. I'm going to say 2-1 to Arsenal. I just feel like I'm just going to back them. Why not?
I absolutely love that. Yeah. Fair play. You are known for rogue predictions over on Continental Club. I'm actually going to go for another 3-1 to Man City, I think, for the second time this season, and they will wrap up the title, in my opinion. I'm not sure whether they'll get over the line in the treble. It just feels a little bit too much to ask. I'm sure they'll have a dip at some stage, and that just achievement is so difficult to achieve. But I think they will get over the line in the Premier League now. But guys, what would you do with the Saliba conundrum? Are you staying with the 4 at the back? Are you switching to a 3? Could Trossard fill in at right wing back? Answers to all those questions, please, in the comments down below. Can City win a treble? I'm not quite so sure as well. My Cubs seemingly not sure either if he's backing Arsenal.
Scared.
As well.
I'm just
scared. He's doing that out of fear. Guys, thank you so much for watching both episodes of Winners and Losers today. We'll catch you later in the week. Bye-bye.